Hey true believers, I'm Cree, and welcome to This Day in Cosplay History. Today, April 16th, we can celebrate that in 2008, Annihilation Conquest, Volume 1, Number 6 was released. Now, this issue is particularly important because this is where we see the Guardians of the Galaxy that we know and love from the 2014 film team up together for the first time. Now, you might be saying, Cree, I know that the Guardians of the Galaxy title is much older than that, and you're right, but stay with me here. For the purposes of this show, we're looking at things through a cosplay perspective, and that makes the 1969 team practically irrelevant. Though I'd love to be proven wrong about that. And if you have Captain Vance Astro or Starhawk cosplay, I would love to see it. And you should send it to me at creeiswrong@thisdayincosplayhistory.com. Now, that's a real email address that I've made, because I plan ahead. So that 1969 team had a good long run in print. But like I said, if you want something that had a heavy impact on cosplay, you have to start in 2008. So on April 16th in 2008, we have the introduction of a new team of Guardians. It reuses the Guardians of the Galaxy name, but it is not a retcon. And actually, within the Marvel Universe timeline, the Guardians of the Galaxy introduced in 2008 come before the Guardians of the Galaxy introduced in 1969, since the Guardians of the Galaxy in 1969, those Guardians are based in the year 3000. So stay with me here. We are going to go all the way down this rabbit hole. The 2008 team is comprised of members who have been introduced in previous arcs and storylines, and they don't waste any time on character introduction. And all the members that end up on the Guardians of the Galaxy are the ones left standing / conspicuously gathered at the end of the Annihilation Conquest arc. This arc opens on a Kree world where the Kree people are trying to repel a phalanx invasion. Phalanx are a cybernetic hive mind that has merged with Ultron, of all characters. The phalanx ran across Ultron in deep space where the Avengers had left him floating at the end of a previous arc. So the phalanx have invaded the Kree. The Kree are trying to fight them back. The phalanx has erected a barrier around the Kree world so that no one can get from the outside in to help them repel this threat, and they have to rely on the characters who happen to be behind the barrier, like Star-Lord, who is recruited to lead a band of misfits, a no-tech sort of suicide squad, that consists of Mantis, Groot, Rocket, and Bug. So they go off on their mission, and then we're also introduced to characters Quasar and her lover Moondragon. It's interesting to note that Moondragon is one of Drax's daughters, and in this particular instance in the series, an actual dragon. It's fun stuff. So Quasar and Moondragon are out trying to get the help of Adam Warlock and the High Evolutionary. And, you know, I don't want to spoil too much. I really enjoyed reading this arc, and I'd encourage anybody to go ahead and give it a read. To summarize, several different groups work independently, kind of coming together in one final battle, and repel the Kree threat. Gamora and Drax kind of come in with the cavalry at the end, having recently recovered from being under control of the phalanx. It's interesting to note that, unlike the film, at this point when the Guardians of the Galaxy come together, the Nova Corps has been wiped out, all except one last remaining member called Nova Prime. In the movie, Nova Prime is Glenn Close, and in the comics, Nova Prime kicks a ton of butt, wiping up all kinds of messes after the Annihilation War arc is finished. It would be really interesting to see them play with that in the sequel to the film. It would be really fun to see Glenn Close being the last member of Nova Prime, maybe. And I could totally see that happening, because Thanos has to get these Infinity Gems the Infinity Gem that they're holding on to somehow, and wiping a ton of the Nova Corps out sounds like his method of choice. That's just my fan theory for something we might see in the sequel. I'm probably wrong. So that Annihilation Conquest arc ends, and Galaxy of the Guardians Volume 2, the title picks up from there. Here we have all of these characters kind of in one place, with Adam Warlock finding out that the universe is in trouble. The Annihilation War kind of ripped up the fabric of the universe, and he talks to Star-Lord. They all end up colluding to form a team of people that will try to be proactive and fix some of the universe's problems before they reach ahead. We see the team come together, we see the team find a name and a base. They eventually tangle with the Universal Church of Truth, which I would say ends up being the main antagonist in the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 arc. Captain Victory of Guardians 3000 that started in 1969 ends up joining the Guardians of the Galaxy 2008 team. He was thrown back in time. He ends up inspiring them to take the name Guardians of the Galaxy. It's all pretty convoluted, but it does make sense in the comics themselves. Eventually there's mistrust and betrayal, the team splits up, they still get a lot done, but then the War of Kings arc starts, and I'll stop even trying to summarize what goes on right about here, and get into some of the interesting similarities between the Guardians of the Galaxy comics and the film. So we see glimmers of the team origin story from 2008 in the 2014 film. Things like Groot sacrificing himself and Rocket bringing him back via a cutting. That happens in the comics, and it's just as touching there as it was in the film. This whole dancing baby Groot thing, though, that is entirely a movie invention. Groot is still a wonderful, self-sacrificing, powerful being. But he, even in sapling form, is imperious and a bit demanding. He's wonderful, but he's not, he's never depicted as a joyful baby. And Groot's actual sentences are shown in Star-Lord and the Annihilation Conquest title. Once Galaxy of the Guardians Volume 2 starts, you never see him say anything but "I am Groot" again. So I really think that these sentences they give Groot earlier are kind of a mistake. Once they started Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, they started playing around with this idea that he only says "I am Groot." It's stuck because it's good and it resonates with people. But that's what I think happened. But we do see instances of Groot actually talking before Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 starts. We're even given an explanation as to why he only says "I am Groot." So that's kind of interesting. Rocket is still a genius and a badass in the comics. He's a tactician, he and Groot are fantastic buddies, and really I can't see anything in the film that deviated in a big way from the comics. The representation of Rocket is spot on, they didn't change a thing. I found Star-Lord to be quite a bit different, though. Star-Lord is, well, for starters, in the Annihilation Conquest arc, he goes on a lot about trying to leave the name Star-Lord behind him. He's not proud of everything that he did while going under that name, and he's kind of trying to make up for some mistakes in his past. He doesn't defy authority as openly as the character in the film, and Peter Quill really is more of a Boy Scout than I expected in the comics after watching the film first. There's also no hint of attraction between him and Gamora in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Peter Quill also gets a really great moment in the Guardians of the Galaxy comics that reminds me very much of the dance-off scene in the movies. In the comics, though, he brings down Thanos instead of Ronan, and he does it with a cosmic cube instead of an infinity gem. Star-Lord is such an interesting character, and also such an interesting character to cosplay. When you see a good Star-Lord at convention, that's really someone you should stop and compliment, because the leatherwork is so extremely demanding. The jacket or the trench coat, the satchel, the belt, the custom holsters, everything that goes into that, it either takes a lot of time, a lot of money, most likely both, to look good. So that's really someone to stop and give props to. A big difference between the movie and the origin story in the comics is that Ronan isn't really a baddie. He kind of just is ruthlessly trying to save the Kree people in a way that makes sense to him. Phalanx is the antagonist here. Ronan from the film, though, got a really lovely update to his character design, and that inspired a lot of great cosplay. Like this work by my friends Cheesecake Panda Cosplay and Fanboy Hobby Cosplay. Drax is an interesting character with a lot of differences between the comics and the film. He is really out to kill Ronan in the film, but in the comics he is purpose-built to kill Thanos. And that's part of what makes him so interesting, is that he can go toe-to-toe with Thanos. There's no mention of him not getting metaphors in the comics, and he's really pretty dry and humorless, just a killing machine with a bit of a tortured past that he's accepted. There's also this really weird moment in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 where he can taste time. It's kind of hard to explain, but they go there. It's odd. And I wonder, in the sequel, since they didn't bring up any of his backstory concerning being built to kill Thanos, I wonder how they're going to keep him interesting and relevant. I assume they're going to just do it through Dave Bautista's star power and the wonderful humor that they've brought to that character in the film, and I'm sure that's going to work. I am so happy to see that Mantis is in the sequel. This film, she's a original member, and she's really important to the team's makeup. She is a mediator. She's a telepath, and she's clairvoyant. She is absolutely a huge part of the team, so it's going to be fantastic to see her in the film. Though she, like Drax, is green in the comics, and I mean, I can understand why they made that change. If you're going to be filming most of your film in front of a green screen, why would you torture yourself by making more than one character green? There's an interesting moment where we see Mantis sonically direct Yondu's arrows, that she has that ability as well. I really doubt we're going to see that in the sequel, but they are in the same movies, so it might be something interesting to play around with. And Gamora is Thanos' daughter, and he did have her cybernetically enhanced, and train her from an early age. In the film, Gamora says that Thanos killed her parents, but in the comics that's not true. In the comics, she kind of feels a debt to Thanos because he gave her the training and the ability to avenge her family's death. It's kind of an interesting dynamic there. Nebula is not in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, the comic. She's also not Thanos' daughter in the comics. Kind of interesting to include her in the film. In the comics, as a character, she says that she's Thanos' daughter, but she is not. And at one point, she even wields the Infinity Gauntlet. So there's some interesting things going on with her character, but she's kind of an interesting pick to bring into the film. I really wonder where they're going to take her there. Yondu is another character that I'd like to talk about, because he is a part of the original Guardians 3000 team. Blue skin, red mohawk, sonically directed arrows. There's a lot in common with the character we see in the film, but they're not the same. The guy in the comics isn't part of the Ravagers. He doesn't have anyway, he's very different, not the same person. Really interesting that they were inspired by the Guardians 3000 character and brought him into the film. Another interesting difference between the comics and the film, nowhere that Celestial's head that is floating out on the edges of the galaxy, that's actually their base in the comics, but in the film, it's just one of the stops on their adventures. While they're there, we see some of the collector's collection. And it's a really great Easter egg that that Cosmo is there. Cosmo is the head of security of Nowhere in the comics. And he and Rocket do not get along. So there's this odd moment where Rocket and Cosmo kind of bristle at each other. It's actually a really wonderful nod to the comics. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 was put on indefinite hiatus in 2010, but after the film, several characters got their own spin-off titles. And the original Guardians of the Galaxy, Guardians 3000, have gotten a new title. Cosmic stuff. It's weird, but we got through it. We got through it, guys. That was some really meaty, hardcore, nerdy stuff, and if you're still with me, thank you for watching. If you found this interesting, share it with your friends. Maybe tag someone in particular who might enjoy it, and please subscribe to our channel for more great cosplay and the interesting history behind it.